Welcome to CK Sports Talk on 99.1 CKXS. CK Sports Talk is brought to you in part by Canada Business Services, the Chatham-Kent Sports Network, and 99.1 CKXS.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CK Sports Talk here on the Mighty XS. That's 99.1 on your radio dial. My name is Peter Cobb, and yes, joining me, he is the wizard from Wallaceburg. Welcome back, Mr. Shawn, Patrick Moynihan, our producer, Corey North, who will be heading south to Ridgetown, that is. Who knows where he is, Mr. Moynihan?
I think he's headed south already, you know. Corey's not with us tonight, but Pete, we're in control. It's good to be back with you. We've missed a couple of weeks. Thanks for filling in on your own one night. We're going to talk a little later about that show. It was outstanding.
Well, thank you.
And I really enjoyed it. I only caught about 12 minutes of it in the car, but you were excellent. And, you know, we continue to hear from people all over. I heard it the past couple of weeks. Busy with a family situation, and heard from a number of people from the Wallaceburg Chatham area that love the show and listen. And we often make jokes. There's only 12 people that listen to us, but I actually think we're up to 20. I really do. So
we're a great prelude to Monday Night Football, right?
Absolutely,
come on,
perfect fit, you know. But anyways, listen, Pete. Let's start and let's talk a little bit about last week's show. We had the opportunity to sit with Shawn Sweezum. He was in town in the summer and was in for a visit here at his home. And we had a chance to sit down with Shawn and his wife. And what a first-class kid.
But you know what? Like, that was, it was so neat and so cool. And he was so, like, because everybody wanted a piece of him here at the station. You know,
Right.
They all wanted to talk to him and that. And he said, no, I got time, guys. So we went back in the production studio and did that interview. And like you said, first class, so patient with us. I just can't imagine how many people tug on his coattail trying to get his attention.
For sure. And, you know, I call him really Wallaceburg's favorite son. And he really is. First of all, a class act. I mean, he wanted to talk about and was really open to talking about his family. And he's a family man. And how he's, you know, his wife spoke how he's such a great dad with their two daughters. And I thought also that what was interesting is he's got close to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And, of course, last year they had that tremendous run.
Oh, yeah.
I think it resulted in a Stanley Cup. And he was telling us how he attends all the games and knows a number of the people down there in the Penguin organization. He even had a brief stint last year on Hockey Night in Canada with Don Cherry. And what a great kid.
Really is. And, you know, I remember one of the questions we asked Erin was, hey, what's game day like for you? And, and her perspective of things. And I found that was really interesting.
Right, and
too.
how the wives get together and they pray for each other. And,
yeah.
But it must be tough being the wife of a kicker in the NFL. Think about it, Pete. You're in the private box with everyone. I would imagine the nachos, the chicken wings, everything is just flowing. It would be outstanding.
You got my attention.
I know. We love those types of events. A pro football game with food. Wow. And here your husband with, 6 seconds left is, can win the game or, in essence, lose the game. And she had some great stories about that and how supportive they are. But, unfortunately for Shawn, and I don't think the whole story has come out yet. It will. He got hurt in that Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio 2 years ago on very questionable field and playing conditions and really, railroaded his career. And you see what happened you saw what happened this year at that game. That game at the last minute.
Oh, they canceled it, didn't they?
Was canceled.
Yeah.
And the NFL Players Association, which Shawn is a member of, and to this day he's still active in that group, said there's just no way we can play in these conditions and on this field. So, it's unfortunate that Shawn is out of football right now. But, Pete, every week, I think yesterday in the NFL, there was 11 points after touchdowns missed. And boy, it'd be great if he ever had a resurgence and was a slide back into the NFL.
Well, I found it interesting in watching. I tuned into the Viking game, of course, because I'm cheering yesterday for the Arizona Cardinals. They didn't come through for us. However, Blair Walsh, the Viking kicker, he's gone. I mean, he missed some field goals and extra points. And you remember what Jim Caldwell said about a performance-based industry.
I remember if for Lion fans out there a year ago, the Lions were struggling with kickers. And, of course, they had questioned Caldwell after the game, and he had one of the greatest quotes, I thought, in pro sports I've heard in a long time. He didn't say he was going to fire him or get rid of him or they're going to try someone else. He simply said, I just remind everyone this is a performance-based industry. And that politely said, he was politely saying, hey, boy, you're not performing.
See you later.
Yeah, you're going to be pumping gas back in Tennessee or whatever, But, Shawn Sweezum, I can't say enough about him. Just a great kid and a great family here in town. And what a pleasure for us to sit with him and his wife.
That was a great interview, yeah.
Speaking about football, though, we should remind our fans, all football fans, of course, it's Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and you and I were actually talking about this on the weekend, and I thought it was 2 weeks away. I didn't have my bearings set, and, of course, it's this Thursday, and what a tradition in the United States of America, Thanksgiving Day football.
Well, you know what? Now, Shawn, they play 3 games.
I know.
So, you know what? You can be glued to the TV from noon till midnight if you want. And you can imagine in the U.S. what a tradition. There's football on. There's copious amounts of food, which,
and ironically, I get a kick out of it because in the States, it really kicks off the Christmas season. It's Black Friday, of course, the following day, biggest shopping day in the United States. And it just sort of kicks off the Christmas season. And, you and I both as educators, teachers, and believe me, everyone, we've got teaching certificates and we have them in writing.
Believe it or not.
And we will prove it to you if we have to. But for many years, we always had parent-teacher interviews on that night. And here, you want to get home and watch the game, and here you have parent-teacher interviews. And I do have to admit to all my good friends out in Blenheim, Ontario, I love the community. When I was principal out there, we would set up both TVs. We had 2 TVs in those days in the school, and we set them both up in the library with the game on.
So if you had a break, you could slide down and catch the
I
score.
felt personally responsible for meeting with a lot of the fathers and just having a discussion in the library and watching the Lions. But, and we'll be having some fun on Thursday. We'll be having
that's at 40 Shawnee Trail.
It's going to be a special get-together, and if any of my neighbors are listening, I know a number of you have real jobs, but I know you don't work that hard in the afternoon. I'm not mentioning any names, Dale and Brandon, but we're going to invite you over, and we're going to have some people over. And
now, will Ginny prepare some of those tremendous chicken wings?
Well, she'll have to,
okay.
And nachos, and as you said, we're going to have football from noon to midnight. So I'm sure there'll be quite a smorgasbord all ready to go at the Moynihan compound for football. And I mean, we make light of it here in the festivities, but a monstrous game for the Detroit Lions.
Well, they're going to take on the Minnesota Vikings. They're both sitting at 6-4. They beat the Vikings in the most improbable fashion 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now. It's
right.
They had a bye week there, but really, the Vikings had a tough go. But, you got to remember the Minnesota Vikings are playing without Adrian Peterson. And,
well, they have struggled. And I know you mentioned yesterday's game against Arizona. I really felt they were lucky. They did have an interception returned, I think 99 or 100 yards for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I mean, boy, you're in the red zone, you're about to score, and you throw an interception. I mean, that's a 14-point swing in a heartbeat.
Carson Palmer has been vulnerable with that, especially in the red zone, and that's certainly been the knock on that was a critical loss for the Cardinals. They really put themselves behind
It was.
the
I
eight ball.
think they're now 4-6 too. And Pete, last night I watched a bit of the Green Bay Packers, and we've got some breaks there because the Packers, they still worry me.
Yeah.
But did they struggle last night? And what a performance by the Washington Redskins at home. That team is really improved.
That former Michigan State quarterback's doing okay, isn't he?
Outstanding. And he was on fire last night and threw a couple deep balls right on and really helped us out if you think about it. Even if we were to lose a game to Green Bay, we still have one in the plus column there. But not to gloat, but New Year's Day, January 1st, 2017, we will be at Ford Field in Detroit to watch the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, and that's going to be some exciting trip for us.
Well, two things. We're going to be celebrating, hopefully, three things. New Year's, of course.
Right.
New Year's Eve in Detroit.
Right.
A Detroit Lion victory, hopefully, on New Year's Day.
Right.
And the retirement of one Sparky Don Leonard.
Well, Don is the Sparkster is coming with us. He's bringing his personal assistant, Lori, also known as the boss. And that is going to be a special time for us. And you never know, we might be able to get a couple of interviews or insights down there for the show. Would be really special. But, boy, pro football, we're just a little past the halfway mark. As we said, Thursday marks a special time for pro football in the United States. And, that's always so exciting.
Without a doubt. And I can't wait. Like I said, now, unfortunately, I'm going to be able to watch the Lions game with you, but then Jay Smith and I are heading to Blenheim, Ontario Thursday night. The Mighty XS, we're calling them Moortown Flags, heading into Blenheim to play the Blades. So
well, you can watch game one with the crew.
Yeah.
Head and do the game, and then circle back for game 3. It's just perfect. I think that's going to come. I think that's in Mexico, I believe. That's
tonight.
That's tonight's game, right? Well, listen, Pete, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll straighten out the Mexico game and the other games for Thanksgiving Day, Thursday. We'll be right back.
Because local does matter. This is CK Sports Talk on 99.1 CKXS.
Listen to that car racing in the background. Welcome back, folks, to CK Sports Talk. Peter Cobb, the wizard from Wallaceburg, Mr. Shawn Patrick Moynihan. And Mr. Moynihan, it looks like it might be you and I. I haven't received word, but Rebecca must be detained.
Sure, and we were going to talk to Rebecca Reimer, CK Sports Express, a fantastic magazine, and they also have an online presence. But we'll talk a little bit about that a little later in the show, just in case Rebecca does find her way here. But, Pete, first of all, I got a little discombobulated there. That game's in Mexico tonight. That's
right.
The Houston Texans, who are leading their division, against the Oakland Raiders. I think Oakland's 6-2. Is that accurate? And they're
just win, baby. Just win.
Remember the great Al Davis, eh? And it seems almost fitting that the Raiders are back in the prominence in the NFL, because the glory days of the Raiders were special.
Oh, can you remember Kenny the Snake Stabler and Fred Biletnikoff, who had more goo on his hands?
Number 25.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you should mention those two, because they changed the rules because of both of them. There became the Stickum rule, because Biletnikoff, his arms were covered in goo, as you said, and Stickum, and they changed that rule, and now it can only be so much. And Stabler's the one who fumbled that ball forward in a key game, and someone pounced on it for a touchdown.
Dave Casper.
Yeah, the fine tight end for Oakland. And they changed that rule, where in the last 2 minutes you can't fumble the ball forward or something like that.
Yeah.
And, boy, it just seems right with Oakland back in the hunt. But they've had so many draft picks for so long. And that organization has gone up and down, and it's kind of neat to see them back. But they're playing in Mexico City in a in a stadium that's gargantuan.
It holds 108,000 people. It's
Yeah.
going to be incredible.
They're going to think they're at Michigan at the Big House
There
or
you
something, you know. But that's tonight, and, of course, the 3 games are on Thursday, with the important one being the Lions and the Minnesota Vikings from Ford Field at noon. Listen, I wanted to mention, a week ago I couldn't join you, and I appreciate you covered for us, and you carried the show all by yourself. In fact, I did get a memo from the brass here at the stadium saying, you know, we might just want to go with Pete Solo all the time now.
Never, ever.
You did a fantastic job. And I really enjoyed it. And we'll talk about some MMA in a few minutes. But I really got a kick out of it. You were talking about your favorite sports and what teams you like and what sports you've watched as a child. And I found I was really curious. And I know you well, of course, and I know the teams you follow faithfully. I mean, you love the Maple Leafs. I still can't get over that. I mean, you come to my house, we got to put on the Maple Leaf game, and I rather, watch something on the Home and Gardening channel than the Maple Leafs. Like, hold on, let's watch Jeopardy instead, which is about the same difference of a Maple Leaf game. I know you're a big Maple Leaf fan, and you really know their history, tremendously. You're a big Lions fan. I've been to many Lions games with you, and we watched many. And I know you're a great Tiger fan and love the Detroit Tigers. I'm just curious, out of your pet teams, what world championship would excite you the most? Which one would you take over out of the 3 of them if you had your choice?
Shawn, that's a great question. And I'm also a Philadelphia 76er fan.
I wasn't even going to mention that.
I know, and I started cheering for them back in 75 and 76 when the great Dr. J joined that team.
Number 6.
Oh, my goodness. But that's a great question because when you become a sports fan, and you know this, when your team does not fare well, you don't sleep it well at night. You're
right.
thinking about things. But I would have to say that I might go on a 2 to 3 month bender if the Detroit Lions won the Super Bowl.
Well, if you went on a bender for that long, hold my nerves, Pete. You're a big Lions guy, and to win a Super Bowl would be so special. I thought maybe you might go with the Maple Leafs.
Well, it's been since '67 there, and I do remember that cup, but I know I get reminded by you Red Wing fans and others, it's been that long. I think they're taking steps in the right direction. You have to admit, they are kind of fun to watch. Mitch Marner is the real deal.
Well, we're going to call it the Hockey Show next week, and we're going to be looking at some real different aspects of hockey and some unique predictions. And so we're going to talk a lot about Mitch Marner, the former London Knight, who, by the way, was tremendous in the Memorial Cup last year. For me, Pete, it'd be the Tigers to win a World Series. I just see teams in baseball, when you get close, you must win. And what I mean by that, I see the Jays getting close, and I see that door only opens for such a small amount of time. And you and I have talked about it a lot in sports. When your team is in the hunt at the end of the season, for example, when the Lions are in the hunt in January, I mean, you just love it, even if they don't make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If games count, we've had this discussion about the Detroit Tigers a lot.
That's right.
Tigers for the past 10 years, except for 2 years ago, have pretty much been in the hunt in August and September. And when your team is in the hunt for playoffs and a potential world championship, it's just so much fun. It's just so enjoyable. I would just love, I know the Tigers won their last World Series, 1984. I love to see a World Series. And when the Tigers played the Giants in the World Series, I think that was back in, don't quote me, was that in 2000? I think it
2006, I believe.
2006, because the Giants 3 World Series on even years, it's just unheard of. Yeah, it was 2006.
Yeah.
I did not have a ticket to that. And I said to myself, in my lifetime, if the Tigers are ever in the hunt and by chance venture to a World Series, I'm going to a World Series game.
You're going to break into Ginny's piggy bank and get a ticket.
Absolutely. And Ginny has a lot of money, so that will not be a problem. StubHub and Ginny, here we come,
I love it.
But it's interesting because, in sports, world championships are just so difficult to come by. We look at the World Series, and that easily could have been won by Cleveland. Like a stroke here or there, we'd be talking about something totally different than the Chicago Cubs. So that World Championship is so elusive. And, boy, do communities go crazy when their team win a World Championship.
And the talk on the street, Shawn, is that the Cubs could be headed for a New York Yankee dynasty run. They're young. They got great pitching, but I agree with you. That window of opportunity, we saw it with Kansas City. They are so fortunate. They lost in the World Series and then managed to hold it together to win a World Series.
For sure.
And we saw this year, where were the Kansas City Royals?
Right. Well, the only thing I would say about the Cubs with a lot of young players, at some point you have to pay them. And that happens to be multiple-year, big-time contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars. And what happens often is teams you can't afford all of them. And they may get to a point where they just cannot afford everyone. But the Cubs look primed. But, Pete, Jake Arrieta blows out an arm or just, Jake Arrieta, believe it or not, fine pitcher for the Cubs. I love him. He's a bulldog. A lot of people wouldn't know this. Pitched for the Baltimore Orioles before he came over to the Cubs in sort of a minor trade. He was below 500 as a pitcher with the Baltimore Orioles. And he comes over to Chicago and develops a new pitch and all of a sudden becomes literally unhittable. I think he had no hitter 2 years in a row.
We saw that with Andrew Miller as a young Detroit Tiger, too.
Was a bum. Was going to be a journeyman left-handed pitcher, and look at him now. So, boy, when you win, it seems like in sports today, you really have to, well, it's not a mystery, you really have to pay. And that is tough on franchises, Pete, what else do you want to talk about? I know we better talk about Friday night because you and I have ventured into this discussion quite a bit. Junior B hockey we like, and, it's great. The Maroons are great, interesting to watch. But there's something about Junior C hockey, especially when you have communities that are fairly close to one another.
Oh, man.
And when they battle, and we've said it, it's unfortunate, Wallaceburg, the Lakers, really have not been competitive in that process for a few years. But that Dresden-Blenheim rivalry is magical. And I know you were down there Friday night, and I got to give some kudos to Danny Gallivan. I mean, Jay Smith.
Isn't he outstanding?
Outstanding young man, outstanding play-by-play.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Loves his sports, loves his hockey. And I know you and Danny Gallivan Smith did the call in Dresden. Tell us about that barn burner.
I got to, first of all, it was interesting. It was a dead even game in the first period for the first 15 minutes. Both goalies, Joel Sawinski and Eric Stewartson, were standing on their head. It was just I thought, oh my, we're in for a tight goaltender battle here. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates open and the Blades scored 3 quick goals in a matter of 3.5 minutes. It's 3-0, and Jay and I are looking at each other saying, where did this come from? But again, that's PGHL, Junior C hockey. Things like that can happen. The one blessing for the Junior Kings was they got Logan Perbrick came up and scored with about 28 seconds to go before the first intermission. And that made it 3-1. I firmly believe that if they would have got into that first period, the Blades, they probably would have held on. But they came out in the second period, and Dustin Maines, the kid from Tweed, Ontario, you remember big number 18.
Absolutely. There are a couple kids from Tweed there on the team.
They got 3 of them on that team.
3.
They do, yeah. And scored to make it 4-1. And we thought, oh, here we go again. And, man, oh, man, the Junior Kings, their resiliency. But you know what was interesting? The Junior Kings had 4 lines they were rolling. The Blades were only rolling 3. I think the Blades only had, I can't remember how many kids they had dressed. Like they only had 17 or 18. They went with 5 defensemen. And you could see by the middle of that second period, they were getting worn down. And the Junior Kings came back. And Shawn, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell our listening audience, first of all, you got to get out and see a PGHL game. Go out and see the Lakers. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Go see the Junior Kings. Go see the Blades. And if you're lucky, go and see one of those rivalry games that you talked about. But especially this line that the Dresden Junior Kings have, Max Holmes, Kevin Ritzer, and Dylan Liberty, who wasn't even there that night.
Right.
They put Shaw on that line. Oh, my goodness. They are... Well, who was the Gretzky line? Was Curry on that line with Gretzky?
Yuri Curry and Glenn Anderson for a while. And
like a threat to score every single time. And they literally took over the game. They scored the tying goal, and Ritzer scored the winner. And, oh, my, poor Eric Stewartson. And Eric Stewartson, the goalie for the Blades, played a tremendous game. But that roof went off the place. Jay and I were jumping out of our seat. It was just exceptional hockey.
Because, it's funny you say this, Pete, because you and I have called a lot of games. Basketball, volleyball. We've done some OUA football, which we really enjoy. We've done some OUA football games when it's, 42-6 at the half. And trying to call that game and keep excited and keep the energy up, making that call is a challenge. So I can imagine you two in the third. It just makes it so much more fun and easy to call.
We were on the edge of it, and we're sitting there thinking, my gosh, there's still 2.5 months of PGHL hockey left here. But we're going to be very busy. In fact, you and I are going to get a chance to call a game. I think we're going to be on the 23rd of December, in and around that time period. I believe we're coming to the barn out here in Wallaceburg.
I haven't been to the barn in quite a while. Well, I'm looking forward to that, Pete. Danny Gallivan will be off that night. He'll be in Montreal, I believe, that night.
I'll do my best Bill Hewitt impression.
And well, that's excellent because they're only a third of the way through the season. And I remember last year talking to a couple people in management with their teams, and they were thrilled that they had a Dresden Blenheim playoff series. First of all, let's be honest with you, financially, that's outstanding. They draw the crowds. They don't have to pay a lot of travel. Pray that those teams meet up in a playoff series down the road. Wallaceburg, Pete, continues to struggle. We give the Lakers full marks. They're working their butts off. I know they won a game. I know they did grab a point in a tie. Hopefully they can battle. And I know their goal was to make the playoffs and grab that final playoff spot. So hopefully, maybe even by next week when we talk and do our hockey show, we'll see the Lakers making a move.
Well, I think they did make a move in which they brought back Derek Ellis. Derek has rejoined the club in a coaching capacity. And I think that's not that because you and I were so impressed when we called that final game last year. Remember how, he was hugging all the players. I just think he's a real players coach.
And he was so generous to us, first of all. Very positive. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to win a period at a time. And you have to admit, for someone who took over an organization back then that was really in trouble and struggling and chaos, he was really a breath of fresh air. So
I think he and Joe Burney Jr. will make a nice tandem. And
good luck to them. And it just would be very nice if Wallaceburg could get a playoff run, because we know, our last thought here, everyone, on Junior C hockey, we know come playoff time, historically in that Junior C league, anything goes.
Absolutely.
Pete, I wanted to mention to you, I watched a little bit of OUA football over the weekend. I wanted to mention it to you. We're very loyal to the Guelph Griffins. We've called their games now for 3 years. We've had so much fun doing that. They haven't lost the game at home that we've called. We've never had to put our sour faces on and call a game where they've, at the end of regulation time, they have lost. So we've been extremely spoiled. Guelph had a tough year. They lost in overtime. They could have won on the last play up at Wilfrid Laurier. They missed that. They've had 3 heartbreaking losses. They blew it in Windsor, which is just incomprehensible. They just weren't ready to play. Anyways, some great games on the weekend. And I know you were away, but Western and Wilfrid Laurier, for all the Laurier fans out there, Western was up by 21 points. I think 8:21 to go in the fourth quarter. And I just happened to turn the game on then.
Wow.
I just thought I'd check in, and I know they were broadcasting it nationally. And so I just clicked it on. And, boy, for all you people who have children or relatives or attend Laurier University, Michael Foltz, the head coach there, true gentleman.
Yes, he is.
That team rallied and stunned Western, and we've had this fight, you and I, before, too. I'm a Western grad, and I'm always amazed at how many people love to see Western lose and remind me of it. But what a comeback by Wilfrid Laurier. No time left on the clock, kicked a field goal to win that game. Second year in a row, Western has been big favorite and has lost the Yates Cup. And now on the weekend, everyone, Laval really destroyed Laurier. That was over early, and Laval just couldn't play catch up. And the Calgary Dinos, who have like 10 starters hurt, it's incredible, rallied and won, and that sets up the Vanier Cup. Laval against Calgary, and I believe that's in Hamilton this weekend. And it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because CIS Sports, which is now called U Sports,
right,
has really promoted that game. But now you have 2 out-of-province teams coming into Hamilton, and you really got to be concerned about how many tickets are they going to sell, So, anyways, we'll keep everyone posted on that. And that's another, we talk about Junior C hockey. Boy, OUA football, we go down there, and we have a lot of kids from this area playing OUA football, and that's another great sport to watch. Well, Pete, we better take a break. When we come back, we want to talk a little bit about Chatham-Kent Sports Express, just an outstanding publication. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to CK Sports Talk with 99.1 CKXS. To submit your local sports news, info, or score, email news@ckxsfm.com.
All right, welcome back to our loyal listeners. Peter Cobb, the wizard from Wallaceburg, Mr. Shawn Patrick Moynihan, and Mr. Moynihan, we didn't get a chance to chit-chat with Rebecca tonight, but we will in the future for sure.
We'll get her in here and get an opportunity, because I'll tell you, Pete, her publication, and of course they have a web presence too, is just outstanding. And you and I have talked about it a ton. We do a little bit of work occasionally for Cogeco Radio or Cogeco TV, and we broadcast games, and we hear from so many parents. Like, oh, that was fantastic to see their kids on TV. They love it.
They just love that.
They really do. And CK Sports Express, the publication, is just filled with so many great stories about local kids and adults and athletic pursuits in Chatham-Kent. And, it's a grassroots sort of multi-platform media provider. It's dedicated exclusively, Pete, to really community sports and their lifestyle. And I'm so impressed with it. They talk about athletes, teams, coaches, volunteers, fan bases, and it's all user-generated, and I can't tell you how impressed I am with it. It's out every couple of months. You see it all over Chatham and Chatham-Kent, for that matter. It's actually, they have partnership editions throughout the province. They have I think Kingston and the Niagara region and Durham and Mississauga and Guelph, London, Peterborough, Waterloo, Windsor, all has similar publications. But, of course, CK Express is all about Chatham-Kent. And as we said, we'll get Rebecca back on a show and she can talk about it. But I just want to highlight a couple things in it that really impressed me. First of all, they're always looking for contributions. And if you get the magazine, it tells you how you can, it's called Call Your Own Shots, and you can be part of their team and submit some articles and some insights. And
we might even hear from the wizard from Wallaceburg.
You know what? We might do something.
Yeah.
You know, we should really do something on some of the guests we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hope people don't get tired of hearing it, but Derek Duran, the Olympic and world champion high jumper who we've interviewed multiple times. He's been here in the studio. He's just an awesome kid. And he's literally a world-class athlete. I think we should do a little article and a little story about him, and because there's some interesting things about him behind the scenes and how he trains, etc. But anyways, they're looking for contributions, and pick up their magazine. On the inside cover, it talks about how you can get involved, and you can volunteer and help them as a reporter, a writer, a photographer, promote an event, promote your team. Another interesting piece that I was just reading, Pete, is they have the Athlete of the Month. And they take... You haven't been in it yet.
Okay.
But I think they're holding out for the new year.
Oh, okay.
And anyways, neat, and I don't know this young lad. Robert Cummings Jr. is the Athlete of the Month. And actually, I see it's sponsored by Victory Ford Lincoln and the great Sparky Leonard. So that's a really interesting insight. But I was looking at some of the articles, and, you know, there's a lot of fitness and nutrition articles. There's even an article this past month about Zumba. Have you ever been to a Zumba class?
I have not.
No, something that you might want to think about. There's a nice highlight about Blenheim Blades in their 50th year. There's a nice article about Bothwell, so it's covering all components of Chatham-Kent. And I was really interesting because it's
the Bothwell Bullet, Nick Wamas. We interviewed him.
Absolutely,
Hey, yeah.
the fine cyclist
You
that was
her.
overseas in Europe all summer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a interesting article about SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and really interesting stuff. So I just can't speak highly enough about this magazine and, of course, online. So I really encourage everyone to really take a look at it. There's such an attempt to cover so many aspects of sport here in Chatham-Kent. And I do want to do a shout out to the many advertisers, including 99.1, who has a full page. The many advertisers, Canadian Tire and Internet Kent and Tom and Al's here in town, and what about Krabby Joe's? They have a beautiful ad. In fact,
you might want to eat that burger. Look at the onion rings and bacon.
Yeah, they have an ad with a giant burger on the back, and we might have to stop on the way home. You got me thinking. But anyways, CK Sports Express, a fine document, and as I said, they're also on the web. Pick it up, and we'll make sure Rebecca's back with us at some point so we can talk to her about the idiosyncrasies of this publication.
All right, Shawn, a couple of shout-outs I want to give out. First of all, Gump. Come on, Gump, I know you're listening. You're the general manager over there at the Oaks Inn. He's always got a cold adult beverage for us when we just poke our head in. And he's got a special salute to me every time he sees me. I get teary-eyed when I see it.
Well, you're number one in his eyes, and he gives you that salute. And, he's a point guard for the Oaks intramural basketball team over there. And I hate to say this, but a lot of people feel he hogs the ball.
Well,
But if you got a great shot, why? So, hello to Gump. And we better say hello to Patty Reed, my sister, who's visiting him there, keeping him in shape, and really putting a nice touch on their place over there at the Oaks. So good stuff to Pat and Gump.
And I have to correct myself, Shawn, because I said December the 5th was the next Maple City cage fighting. It's February the 25th. You and I are going to be there for that. It was incredibly entertaining. Those kids that I interviewed, so enthusiastic. My favorite, without a doubt, was Andrea Watson, the young girl from Kitchener who's
can't find anybody to fight.
Oh, gosh. I can't. I hope she's back in town. In fact, she said she would be willing to be interviewed by us. She said, I'll drive to London. I'll meet you halfway.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
To be interviewed. Like, what a great
Well, she's
kid.
untouchable right now,
Yeah.
Pete, and nobody wants to fight her.
No, that's right.
And so I enjoyed your interviews there, and
Thanks.
We'll be there on the 25th and do another show from there. And I missed the last one due to another commitment, but boy, credit to the people bringing that into Chatham-Kent, and we look forward to that on the 25th. Listen, we want to plug the Dresden Junior Kings are having a special dance this Saturday night. 6 o'clock cocktails will be there. 7 o'clock dinner, we will be there. 9 o'clock, the band, the internationally known O'Hara Brothers, starring Toby and Clancy and Jeff, and the great Rod Beaudre on drums, on percussion. I like Rod. I always give Rod a list of songs to play, and he does always ignore me, but,
Well, you and I are going to be there. And
we are.
We're going to be. We want to. You can come and meet us, and we'll actually, we'll have an adult beverage with you. And I know the heater is going to be there, and I got a feeling he might sing some Johnny Cash.
Oh, I hope so. That's going to be a great night, and we've been invited to that. We're going to. We have our tickets, and we really look forward to that and that special night. That's this Saturday, and I know they've sold a good 250 tickets already. There's likely room for another 50 or so you can get one from any executive member. And is there a chance we'll meet the great Dave Cameron possibly at the bar that night?
The mountain man, my bodyguard, says he will be welcoming you and I with open arms.
Beautiful. I hope that means a freebie. That's all I can say. Dave's been on our show. We know he's a faithful listener. And that's this Saturday night, the Junior Kings fundraiser.
Beautiful. Well,
and listen, Pete, just before we go, I know we get this question asked a lot. If you miss the show, how can they pick up on the show? I know many of our guests often ask for a copy. Maybe you could share with us our last thought tonight on how we can find Sports Talk with Pete and Shawn.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's great. It's Jay Smith and the great Chris Taylor, 13-time Volunteer of the Year, have put the podcast right on the CKXSFM.com webpage. You go to sports. I was listening to our TJ Brody interview. They had that one. They had the Sweezum interview, and they had the interview process I went through with the Maple City Cage Fighters.
Oh, that'll be excellent because, Pete, next week it's just going to be you and I again, but we're going to be doing the hockey show. We're going to be talking about some junior hockey, both, junior C, Junior B, and we'll talk a little London Knights and Junior A hockey. We'll be talking a lot about pro hockey. We're going to go out on a limb and make some predictions on who we think are going to be, big surprise in the NHL, and we'll have a few individuals sharing their thoughts too. So that's next week, the hockey show with Pete and Shawn.
All right, folks. Well, listen, thank you again so much for joining us here. For my partner in crime, Mr. Shawn Patrick Moynihan, you know him as the Wizard from Wallaceburg. For Corey North, our producer, he's from Ridgetown, but he'll be heading south somewhere, that's for sure. My name is Peter Cobb, and I'm saying so long.
Thanks for listening to CK Sports Talk. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Chatham-Kent Sports Network and 99.1 CKXS. For more local sports news and information, log on to the Chatham-Kent Sports Network at cksn.ca.
99.1